Okay, so the purpose of this video is to demonstrate how to create an in-place mass that will do something like this, where you have geometry that is basically going in and out. This could be for a curtain wall system or something like that later once that's applied. We won't talk about that so much in this class. We're going to just talk about how to get this geometry in the first place. So what you would do typically, and I'm going to just edit this to get rid of the geometry that I've created so far, and just kind of work my way backwards. So what we have here are essentially reference lines at reference planes, and then we use the reference lines to go ahead then and generate the geometry. So I'm going to actually get rid of the reference lines too, so that way we can understand kind of where we started from. And if I go to an elevation here, this is the south elevation of that particular in-place mass. The in-place mass, which is created initially with a pretty simple extrusion here, rectangle, and I created the form like this, about 1 foot thick, and then I just extruded it up using the Create Form tool, and basically that was it. And if we go back to 3D, we'll see we have 2 of those. So we're going to undo that again as well. Go back in there and undo that. So that's how I got this initial mass anyway. And going back to that south elevation, what I did here to make this easier, I'm thinking that, you know, basically the geometry has to go, if we're doing kind of something typical where there's a vertical mullion equidistant across the entire wall. What I did here is I created reference planes that are equidistant. The idea being that each reference plane has a name. That's important because then if it's a named reference plane, it can be used as a work plane later. Okay, so that's the idea behind that. So once I've got these reference planes placed, then what I can do is I can go to a different view here. Let's go to the west elevation view where I see a side profile of it. And then I'm going to basically draw the reference lines at each reference plane in order to get the shape at that particular place in plan of the curtain wall, if that makes sense. And it'll make sense as I draw it here. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to set my reference plane. I'll set it to reference plane 1, which is the one closest to me in this case. And then I will place some reference lines. So let me just click on the reference line tool, and then of course again we want to make sure that the reference plane is at that reference 1. I'll basically draw here the first one, and let me do something like this. And again, I'm just kind of doing this to illustrate how this would work, and I'm not going to worry too much about the details here. So there we go, that's maybe the first mullion, kind of where that's going. And then essentially I'll change my reference plane, and I can do this in a couple ways. I could go here and change reference plane, go to reference plane 2, and then draw the next reference plane. So I'll do that, and let's say it does something like this, something like that, you know, and I might go ahead just to make this a little bit more right, just kind of line everything up there. And then again, reference line, go to reference plane 3 and draw that. Now when you're snapping to things, you might want to make sure that you're not snapping to existing geometry as you do that, because it could potentially ignore the reference plane there. Okay, so there's that one. And let's get rid of that and go back to my west, do the reference plane 3 this way. So again, reference line, or at reference plane 3, and I'll do this. And then we'll do one more reference lines, or chain of reference lines at reference plane 4. Again, just to kind of show the example. Okay, so let's look at that in 3D. You should see the reference lines there. So the idea is once those reference lines are in place, then you can start creating the forms. Okay, I'm going to turn off my show reference plane. That's kind of wrong. Just go ahead and just set that. Okay, So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create the forms. So I'll click on Modify here, and then while I'm in this Edit Form mode, I'm going to select some reference lines, select these two, and then just go ahead and create the solid form. And it starts creating that geometry. I'll do the same thing again. I'll tab to make sure I get the reference line, get this chain reference line, create the form there. And so it creates that. Do it one more time. Tab to get that. Select this. You want to do this one bay at a time, because if you try doing multiple bays, you might get some interesting and unrealistic geometry. Okay, and so basically once that's in, I'll go ahead and finish the mass. And I've got my geometry. Then you can go into your architecture tab, apply curtain system to this, and start working on it that way. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you do have any questions, feel free to follow up through my contact information or here on the channel. Thanks.